Welcome to Biohacker's live show. My name is Teemu Arina. This is streaming right now to Biohacker's Handbook channels, Biohacker's Summit channels, Biohacking Secrets channels. Our guest today is Anthony Di Clementi, and also Siim Land's channels. He's going to be joining in within this conversation as well. So welcome, everyone. Today's topic, if we take a look at my screen, is Biohacking Secrets to upgrade energy and focus. Our main guest today is Anthony Di Clementi. Anthony Di Clementi is an author, trainer, and biohacker. And what I really like about him is that he's really implemented biohacking in a very holistic way in his life and with his clients. And he's a wealth of knowledge when it comes to biohacking information and how you can upgrade yourself. And he's going to be sharing some of the proven, tested, and science-based methods for optimizing performance, health, and focus. I want to remind you also at this point that Anthony Di Clementi is speaking at the Biohacker Summit event, 1st and 2nd of November in Helsinki, Finland. So is Siim Land as well. And actually, we still have this week, we have discounted tickets available. And if you've never been to Finland, Finland is the home country of sauna. And we have this wonderful sauna area of traditional Finnish sauna, infrared saunas. There's also cryo chambers. There is even a photobiomodulation sauna. We have everything there. And you can also dive into some of these experiences in guidance of some of the top Wim Hof method practitioners from Europe, as well as Finnish sauna shamans who can guide you through some of these experiences, maybe even Latvian if we get them over there. And that's kind of one of the best ways to experience a conference also in terms of recovery. And Anthony was with us at the Biohacker Summit in 2016, and we had a pretty awesome smoke sauna experience as well in Finnish wilderness, and he gave a keynote also at the conference. So head over to biohackersummit.com. We still have tickets available at a discounted price for a couple of days. And I also recommend you to go to biohackingsecrets.com. I guess that's the URL. And that's where you can learn more about Anthony. And he has a book also available, which you can get, a free book that will be shipped to you at shipping cost only, if I remember correctly. And he's a wealth of knowledge. And I also recommend you to listen to his podcast. There's a lot of interesting guests over there. But without further ado, I would love to welcome Anthony to the show. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Excited to be here, Teemu and Sin.
Cool. So, can you actually show Anthony my picture? Yeah. Paina sitä nappia. Just press the button. Yeah. Sitä nappia siinä, että se näyttää vaan GH5. Yeah, cool. All right. Here we go.
There we go.
Yeah, it's all live, so we're hacking away. So, how's it going on?
It's going great, man. Having a fantastic day. Was just making some tweaks to the biohacking gym over here, adding a Live O2 adaptive contrast machine for doing some exercise with oxygen training. And
so Live O2 is for breathing training, is that right?
Yeah, you fill a reservoir with oxygen, and then you can do sprint intervals at very low oxygen and then recover at very high oxygen for improving energy production and mitochondrial efficiency. So moving some things around in the gym to have that type of interval training a regular part of the week.
I remember it's also used for asthmatic patients. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a ton of applications for cognitive function, for immune regulation. You can combine it with saunas to improve the function of white blood cells and oxygenation in the body. So there's a lot of very, very exciting ways that you can use this adaptive contrast or exercise with oxygen training. So I'm pretty pumped to get it a regular part of my routine as well.
You have something on your nose. What's that?
Yes. So next to me here, I don't know if the camera will catch it. You can see at least the edge of it. Next to me here, I have a molecular hydrogen inhalation machine. And I use that when I work just for no extra time. It's a very, very small intracellular antioxidant that helps to neutralize free radicals like peroxynitrate and some of the things that can accelerate the aging process and cause double-stranded DNA breaks. So I'll use it during my meditations. I'll use it when I'm hanging out with other biohackers like you guys, and doesn't take any additional time out of the day, but provides cognitive and physical benefits. Pretty cool.
Wonderful. I'm drinking from my traditional, actually, cup. This is like a traditional Finnish, it's called kuksa. So this is made out of, I don't know what's the name in English, but this growth, this kind of abnormal growth on a tree. And there is some reindeer bone also on this cup here. And what's inside is actually my favorite cup of coffee. So I have some really nice single origin, high altitude beans from Central America. And there is also some L-theanine in it and some lion's mane extract. So I'm going to use this during this conversation to really kind of elevate my presence. And what I really also like about drinking from a cup like this is that the wood will it will absorb some of the taste. So I'm always using this cup specifically to drink coffee, and it really rounds up, and there's this nice wooden taste also that kind of gets into it. So that's one of my favorite ways to have a nice cup of coffee.
I dig it. That's why I love hanging out with you guys. These conversations turn into like fun show and tell episodes.
Yeah.
Share all the stuff we're doing.
Behind me, you can also see some jars. So we are at the Biohacker Center studios here in Helsinki, Finland. And there is every possible superfood and supplement on the planet that you can use to make some upgraded smoothies. So I would love to hear, what is your kind of go-to beverage? What you like to kind of get yourself going, let's say in the morning, or perhaps for a podcast like this, or for the gym? Like, up to you to choose which beverage you describe.
Yeah, most of my days start pretty similarly. I wake up and I hydrate. I have a fridge filled with something called a hydro shot. It's a product made by H2 Bev. It's a molecular hydrogen canned beverage. They've got a patent on the technology for having the highest concentration of H2 gas in their canned beverage. That H2 gas is the same thing that I'm breathing in right now. I'm a big advocate of molecular hydrogen and utilizing that technology for upgrading performance. So I'll start my day with a few cans of that. Possibly some Kangen water. I usually make an apple cider vinegar drink in the morning with either Topo Chico or San Pellegrino. Carbonated water. You get a little bit of an added benefit from that carbonated beverage. As you know, the CO2 gets absorbed. You get a little bit of an improved oxygen dissociation from hemoglobin. So a lot of people will simply look at blood oxygen saturation as a metric for how well oxygenated we are, but really we're only able to utilize the oxygen that is dissociated or freed from hemoglobin. And as you guys are well aware, acutely increasing the amount of CO2 in your body can improve the amount of oxygen that is available. So I'll make an apple cider vinegar beverage with some carbonated water, some lemon or lime, and then sometimes I'll add chlorophyll or other oxygenating compounds like that. And then later in the day, I'll usually do green juice. So I'll use a masticating juicer, not one of the centrifugal juicers that a lot of people use that actually tend to denature the enzymes and nutrients in the juice. What we know from the Gershon protocol that was popularized by the German physician, Dr. Max Gershon, in helping people at the extremes of dealing with health issues like cancer, like toxic overload, they tend to get the best results from using these masticating juicers that are much more gentle and free from that heat and friction. So I apply those same principles and try to keep that green juice, celery, cucumber, lemon, lime, mint, pretty much any water-rich organic green vegetable a regular part of my day. And I delay the foods that have a higher digestive burden or even, that are solid meals until later in the day after a lot of the cognitive demands have been met.
You just make me want to drink some of the ginger juice right away.
There you go.
Oh, I need those greens also, but I don't have them at hand. So, okay, what other methods do you use to hyperoxygenate yourself? Do you have let's say exercise or breathing techniques that you use to, bring more oxygen into your body?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just about every day, 6 days a week, I'll have some form of cardiovascular training as a part of my routine. Preferably in the morning. If I have interviews like this, I have a treadmill in my gym, so I'll get on there and I will exercise at a rate where I'm able to breathe through my nose, but right under the threshold of where I need to open my mouth. And I'll kind of stay there where it's challenging for anywhere from 15 to 45 minutes. And periodically throughout the week, I'll change up the intensity. So some runs will be longer, but very, very low intensity, even as low as like 4.5 to 6 on the treadmill, miles per hour. It would be a little bit of a different conversion for kilometers per hour, depending on where in the world your listeners are at. And then sometimes I have fit tests and things like that I've created and found to be pretty accurate benchmarks for where your oxygen saturation and utilization is at, where I'll start out and gradually increase the speed until I get to a point where I can no longer breathe through my nose. And once I need to open my mouth and breathe, I'm done. And so those acute ways of training the body to not only perform with restricted airflow by only utilizing the nostrils, over time, I've found them to create a positive adaptive response that improves oxygen saturation and utilization and efficiency.
I like to do a daily practice of breathing techniques where I first breathe in through the nose, and then very explosively out through the mouth. And I usually like to also open up my shoulders when I inhale, and kind of bring my shoulders forward when I exhale. And I do that 30 times, and in the end I keep my breath fully empty lungs, and I wait for a signal from my brain that I need some oxygen. I linger there for a moment, and I just fully inhale, and then I keep it. And in that moment, what I like to do, I squeeze. I guess what's this muscle between between your genitals and your anus?
Yep.
Yeah,
the eagle muscles they use to stop going pee.
Yeah, and I only hold that muscle, and what happens? I get this massive explosion of energy going straight into my brain, and it sometimes makes me dizzy even. It's kind of like a voluntary release of DMT from my pineal gland. I actually read recently that there is DMT exists in so many different parts of the body. It's not just there. So that's kind of a way how I really get to the present moment and ready to rock. So I like to do that often when I feel I'm not present.
I love it. Yeah, me too. Those breathing practices are so powerful, and I'm a big believer that we have the capacity to create our future and craft our reality by using visualization and some of these mindfulness practices, especially when we combine them with engaging our physiology, through breath work, through contraction and engagement of the perineum, the Kegel muscles. And I love doing those things too, and taking those moments to think about where we're headed with our life, where we want to steer the ship, what type of course corrections need to be made. It's cool, man. I love it.
Yeah. So I know that you are someone who has been diving deep into different methods that you can use to enhance your focus and performance and well-being. So what are some of the things that you find yourself doing repeatedly over and over again?
Mm-hmm. So in the past few years, there's been a few, and I made some notes last night when I was journaling before bed on things that we can discuss. Some specific biohacks that have had a profound impact on my life and may be able to benefit, some of the people tuning in and hanging out with us. I've touched on a little bit of hydrogen, right? Molecular hydrogen, and making that a more regular part of my routine, particularly when I'm in a fasted state. It's been very, very beneficial for me. And the three ways that I've found to best integrate hydrogen for myself and for clients, I mentioned the hydro shots. I really, really love those. They're a little bit expensive, so there are more affordable options like the magnesium-based tablets that dissolve in water. I utilize those a lot when I travel for minimizing jet lag and making sure that wherever I'm going, when I hit the ground, I'm landing fresh and quickly adjusting to the time zone in the new destination. So I'll be doing that when I fly to Helsinki in November to hang out with you guys. That's one method. Number two is the Halcyon molecular hydrogen inhalation unit. So there's a lot of research on inhaling molecular hydrogen for cognitive performance. And I believe that, the extremes inform the mean. We can look at the people that are dealing with things like Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, which my father has. And the interventions that work best for those individuals have a strong case can be made that they can also be utilized to improve cognitive performance in healthy people. So I've found that inhaling molecular hydrogen for anywhere from an hour to 2 hours a day, you want to pulse it. Otherwise, the benefits are substantially decreased. That's another tool that I've used and found very helpful. And there's some pretty exciting studies that we could link to in the show notes if the listeners would enjoy that. And then the third is a little bit more controversial, but it's actually been the most beneficial, not only for me, but for a lot of people in our community. And that is a protocol of diluting 35% food grade hydrogen peroxide. So this is where we're a bit on the edge of the more we push the limits of things and try to reap the benefits of implements that are on the cutting edge, the more we tend to not necessarily have the clearest understanding of the mechanisms through which they work, if that makes sense. And what we do know is that when you dilute 35% food grade hydrogen peroxide, we tend to see an improvement in focus, energy, cognitive performance, cognitive endurance. And the chemical composition is H2O2. There's a lot of different theories, and there may be some validity to all of them. One theory is that H2O2 tends to dismutate into water and a single oxygen molecule that then can have a cleansing effect on parasites, viruses, bacteria in the body. We know that our own immune system uses hydrogen peroxide as a signal to identify and flag molecules that need to be addressed by our immune system. And with a growing number of people dealing with subclinical immune senescence, there may be some connection between the ingestion of diluted 35% food grade hydrogen peroxide and an upgrade in immune function, possibly through that signaling pathway. And again, this is somewhat observational and anecdotal still. The science will probably catch up. And then the third is that it may also dismutate into molecular hydrogen, H2, and oxygen, and have an oxygenating effect in the body. And then you have that same antioxidant, that intracellular antioxidant in H2 gas that we discussed with Biohacks 1 and 2 through the oral consumption of the tablets dissolved in water, the hydro shot, or through inhalation with the halcyon. So those are some that I'm loving right now.
I see. So a lot of oxygen. Are you not worried to maybe, hyperoxygenate yourself to a point where it might contribute to oxidative stress even?
I'm not. I try to balance it with a number of interventions like discussed earlier, where I'll practice restricted breathing, raising CO2 levels intentionally. And of course, with any biohack, every body is different. And we're all at various places on the continuum from optimal health to dis-ease. So it's important to listen to your body and pay attention to how you feel, and not just plow because you or I or Asbury or Greenfield or Tim Ferriss recommended something. It's important to stay tuned in to the feedback that we're getting and make adjustments, because it may not, any of these things that we're discussing may not be the best fit for everyone at this point in time based on where they're at in their journey.
Tell me a little bit about the ways how you test that, basically how you kind of dive into the feedback loops, kind of quantified self, maybe lab testing and so on, so that you know that you're not fucking yourself up.
Yeah, I get regular blood work. I utilize a number of different tests from a few different companies, and I use those as a benchmark. For a while, I was so deep in testing with so many different tools that it was taking up a prohibitive amount of my day. And it got to the point where I didn't have a high degree of confidence in any of the testing methods that I was using. If you're using a pulse oximeter to measure blood oxygen saturation, but you don't know how much of that oxygen is able to be utilized, it's not the best benchmark. If you're checking your blood pressure, your pulse, or your respiratory rate, things like that, there's a lot of scenarios where these tools and testing methods for quantification are not accurate. You have the Oura ring, which I used to love. I don't wear it anymore. I think that.
Why is that?
I found that I'd reached diminishing returns with the feedback that I was getting from it. And I think that I didn't feel good when I was wearing it, honestly. And I'm not sure if that was related to the low level of radiation that it does emit. I do put it in airplane mode a lot of the time, but it would pop out of airplane mode. And once I kind of got to a point where my deep sleep and my REM sleep was where I wanted it to be, I knew the cause and effect relationships between the habits that would facilitate a high amount of deep sleep and a high amount of REM sleep. And I knew when I wasn't doing those. I didn't need the ring to tell me. And yeah, I mean, I like it. I think the technology is great, especially for people that haven't done that work. Right. For me, I wasn't getting a lot of feedback that I could use to make practical changes to my routine, and to the interventions that I was choosing.
The way how I see technology, and especially wearables and quantified self technologies, is that it's like, practicing martial arts. You learn a specific weapon. The moment when you master it, the ultimate mastery is to be able to go empty-handed, to not really need the weapon. So in a similar manner, like actually the most beneficial self-tracking device is the one that has taught you things to a point that you don't need it anymore? I noticed that myself with HRV monitoring. I used hard math, for example, quite a lot, and to bring up my parasympathetic tone and increase heart rate variability. And that was a really practical tool to learn that in real time. But once I kind of figured out like how I do it, I can do it very predictably without using a device. So then I don't need it anymore either. So is there some specific measurement tools and technologies that you find yourself using occasionally? Like for example, I use this thing called Sculpt. It's a German device. It's a company that helps you to measure muscle tone and fat percentage on every single muscle. So I might use that occasionally to look through my training, that if I'm not getting imbalances in terms of muscle quality and tone. And I find it useful to use occasionally. So do you have something similar that you would dive into occasionally?
Yeah, and I'll share that in 1 second. I apologize. As we were getting the technology going, I've been chugging Topo Chico over here and water. I need to run to the washroom real quick, but I'll be back in 30 seconds with an answer to that. Maybe Sim can jump on and chat. I'll be right back. My apologies.
Okay. Yeah. At this point, I think it's cool if we bring Seem online. So if we can see if our friend Seem Land from Estonia is live. So put on the gallery view. Yeah, cool. Nice. While we wait for Anthony to return, Seem, how's it going in Estonia?
Well, everything is going really good, and it's the beginning of autumn, so the weather themselves are still, like usually the best time of the weather for Estonia is the autumn, so it's the most beautiful time here.
Yeah, same here. I think the summer is still going on strong here in the north. So I definitely enjoy global warming at this part of the world for sure, but I don't know if it's gonna be a good thing to celebrate really. But with that, I mean, welcome to the show also.
What's up, Sam?
Yeah.
Hello. What's up, Anthony? Good to see you again.
Thank you for your book, Metabolic Autophagy. It looks awesome, man.
For sure, you're welcome, and I'm glad you like it.
Yeah. So, Seem, what are some of the kind of biohacking routines or tools or technologies that you find yourself coming back to on a regular basis?
Well, I think you put it really good in a sense that the best kind of technology you want to pay attention to is your own self or your own body. And I'm always constantly trying to listen to that the most rather than try to rely on any tool or gadget. But with that being said, I still think that there's still a lot of use for these things, especially if you're like trying to build certain routines or find certain patterns, so to say. Like a lot of people who are struggling with their sleep, then using some sort of a tracking device like the Oura Ring can be very useful for just knowing what's their sticking point, so to say, and like even like measuring your calories or whatever else biometric statistic they would want to pay attention to. It's all very useful, but most of the time I'm just sticking to the good old Oura Ring because I think that's like the biggest let's say results come from just optimizing your sleep, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah. In terms of Oura Ring, I'm looking at the HRV value, and recently I've also started looking at body temperature fluctuations, some of the more rarely looked at values. But over time, what I find useful using these kind of technologies is actually the long-term data that you get out of it. So especially, looking at seasons, looking at changes in my work or travel schedule, and seeing how, let's say, my resting heart rate over time is even 1 or 2 up the normal baseline or lower. So I often can relate that those numbers have behind them, some true changes in my lifestyle and patterns, and also seasonality seems to affect things like that. So body temperature and fluctuations, as well as resting heart rate. So yeah, Anthony, in terms of the things that you come occasionally back in terms of measuring and figuring out, like what do you find useful?
Yeah, so where I'm at right now, I'd mentioned that the path that got me here was a lot of quantified self type tools. And then I started noticing that I was just getting annoyed by how much time they were taking out of my day, and that they weren't adding a lot of feedback that I could put into practice to make adjustments to my daily and weekly routine. Or they weren't providing breakthroughs that elevated my performance in body or mind, or even just in overall quality of life. So the places that I spend the most time now tracking are probably a little bit different, but I'll share some of them with you guys, and maybe they'll be of service. I have identified about 8 things that for me have the greatest correlation with my quality of life and how I feel. And these are things that I set out to do every day. I don't do all of them every day, but I have a checklist on my refrigerator with those things. And I actually check them off as they're done throughout the day. You know, waking up in the morning and doing a meditation using my Muse headband while breathing molecular hydrogen. That's one of them, for example. Doing my apple cider vinegar drink and taking my empty stomach supplements. That's another example. Getting a workout in and including some of that cardiovascular training that we discussed earlier in our conversation. That's one of them, right? And I know that if I'm hitting about 30 of those habits on a weekly basis, it's a pretty good week. Those weeks I tend to get more done, I tend to feel better, etc. So that's one thing that I track. It's not an Oura ring, it's not my blood pressure, it's not my blood oxygen saturation levels. I'm tracking the cornerstone habits that for me have the greatest connection to my quality of life. I use this device that I was turned on to by Nick Pino. It's called an ENV RD10. It's a radiation meter, and I use that to make sure that all of my environments are optimized, and particularly low in microwave radiation. So it's when I'm working at home, it's easy. I know that if I'm in RF mode, I'm going to have less than 2 green lights, and with the sound on, it's not going to be beeping, right? But when we travel, our environment changes. And I've noticed that depending on where I go, how much sun there is in my new environment, how much time I spend outdoors in nature, breathing fresh air, connected to the earth, in natural bodies of water, if I'm staying in a skyscraper hotel versus an Airbnb home, all of these things matter. So I bring this with me, and I use that to make changes to my environment so that the invisible becomes visible, and I'm not exposing my cells to biological signals that are going to adversely impact cognitive performance and health. Right. So I do pay a lot of attention to this on a daily basis.
Oh,
I
love both. I love both examples, really great ones. I used to have like Post-it notes on the back of my phone. Yeah. And I did the same, like a manual kind of list of things that I went through. And sometimes, I mean, we have all these apps, but if you stick something on the back of your phone, that makes a lot of sense. There's some nice apps also to track, daily habits. I enjoy really an app called Way of Life. There is also another one called Habit Bull, and I also know of another service called Habitify. So there's a few of those that are really not about tracking the to-do items, but really tracking the habits, the daily habits. I would, before going back to the electromagnetic radiation and what do you think about that, what else do you have on your daily habit list? I think the audience is on the edge of their seats to know.
Yeah, so it changes. It changes with time. So I reevaluate it every 4 to 6 months, and I just updated it somewhat recently. One of the things that I have on there is play and social. You know, am I getting out of the house? Am I connecting with a community, or going on a date, or meeting up with someone that has similar interests and values? That's a big one. Stopping eating within 3 hours of bedtime is a big one. That's one of the things that the Oura Ring helped me realize has a massive negative impact on my deep and REM sleep if I eat too close to bed.
So you basically abandoned the bag of chips that you were previously going through before bedtime.
I'm a fat kid. I'm not even a closet fat kid. I'm just a fat kid. I eat a lot. I always have. And I noticed that if I didn't bring greater awareness to my meal timing, it had a domino effect where it would impact my sleep. Then that would impact how I felt in the morning. Then that would impact, you know, whether I got a large iced Americano or felt great without any caffeine. You know, it wasn't as simple as just eating a late night snack. It was, how is this going to impact, you know, the next 36 hours of my life, and how I feel in the interactions that I have during that time, and the way that I show up for clients, people I care about. So that was another big one. I try to get in 3 to 4 90-minute deep work sessions per day. That's a big one. I need to be showing up and creating things that have a positive impact on other people. And some of that directly translates to money, and a lot of it doesn't. And that's okay, because if we're all here, I believe, building two things. We're building our legacy, our body of work, the shit that we leave behind when we're gone, and we're building our eulogy, which is the human component of that legacy. You know, who are the people that are going to show up when you pass, and what are they going to say about you? You know, and when our life is too much about just doing our own thing for our own benefit, because I want to feel good, it can prevent us from creating in a way that has that ripple effect and builds a body of work that contributes to our legacy, and also impacts lives in a way that contributes to our eulogy and the people that are there when we transition.
Right on. How about Seem? What would you put on your daily checklist, like things to make sure you're getting into your day?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, the points that Anthony brought out are really spot on, especially with the like relationships and connections, those sort of things. Because usually when you are, let's say, full on biohacker mode, then the other people tend to be somewhat neglected, at least to a certain extent. And then you have to kind of be mindful enough to bring yourself back into the center. But at the same time, I think like in order to change the world or to change the other people around you, then you definitely have to take care of yourself first. And that starts with, you know, definitely, I think some form of exercise every day is almost like a mandatory thing, especially in the modern world, getting a good sweat on, whether that be with some, you know, cardio, resistance training, or even like a sauna. That's all of those things will, mimic some aspects of this ancestral living, where you would expose yourself to this physical stress as well as heat. So I think, like I usually try to do some form of exercise every day, and definitely spend some time in nature as well, just to, you know, expose yourself to this, natural environments, to de-stress yourself, think about your own thoughts, listen to an audiobook or something like that. And it definitely shows like massive, both of them show like massive, results in your productivity after you come back. So it may feel like you're wasting time, but you're actually getting like a bunch of positive benefits in the things that you're about to do afterwards. So I would say that nature and exercise are something that every person should do in some shape or form.
Right on. I think you can abandon a lot of biohacking tools and equipment by exposing yourself to nature. And while we are having this conversation, I'm just gonna hydrate myself. I have some Quinton Hypertonic here. I really love the packaging of this thing here. Do you guys know what it is?
It's the seawater.
Yeah, this is seawater. Like, it has some phytoplankton even in it, and 78 different minerals, and it's harvested from deep sea, microfiltered. and you just like cut one of these ends here, and
You gotta shotgun it.
yeah, and then the lower part, I'm just gonna get some. All right.
Yeah, those are fantastic.
It tastes really salty.
Yeah, there's a lot of hydration products that are like made out of all these artificial mineral additives, but I really like, the real stuff. So that's one of my favorites for sure. So, oh, yeah, that was salty for sure, but it will help my cellular function, and yeah, hopefully help with hydration as well. So yeah. Did we fix the Instagram audio? Maybe? No. Yeah, maybe. Cool. Wonderful. There's a few questions from the chat. So, by the way, if you want to ask questions, go to Biohacker Summit YouTube channel. And there is the live show that is now streaming. And in the chat, you can ask questions. And there's a few questions that I'm going to ask both of our gentlemen here. Presence is asking, what factors help you get more deep sleep? I can answer myself. Actually getting as close to Earth as possible, like sleeping outside in a tent or in a cabin in the woods next to ocean usually worked really well, as well as blocking out modern technology and blue light in the evening. So what else? How about Anthony?
Sure. For myself and for, we've had now dozens of clients see 300 to 400% improvements in deep sleep and REM sleep. Certain people tend to struggle more with deep sleep. Certain people tend to struggle more with REM sleep. And what the four factors that we've seen have a huge impact. I'm going to touch on the four factors that haven't been discussed like 10,000 times over, that everyone that's listening is probably well aware of. But the ones that we've seen have a huge impact: mold remediation. And this goes hand in hand with reducing EMF. Specifically, when people are having issues with deep and REM sleep, they often need to go from Wi-Fi to Ethernet to really optimize the amount of deep and REM sleep that they're experiencing. So it's not enough to just unplug your Wi-Fi at night or be conscientious about how you're using technology. They usually need to make a full switch. And there's a really interesting study that came out showing the connection between mold and your electromagnetic environment. It showed that when mold was exposed to non-native EMF, there was a 600x increase in biotoxin production. Wow. So what we're seeing is that by decreasing the amount of mold in your environment, you're only addressing a part of the issue. It needs to go hand in hand. There needs to be mold remediation along with a substantial decrease in the radiation, the microwave radiation that you're exposed to. So by going from Wi-Fi to Ethernet and then remediating the mold, we kind of get that 1-2 punch in play that helps a lot of people. Along with that, there's a connection between, as you guys know, there's a resonance effect here where as human beings, we tend to synchronize with the dominant external stimulus. And this same resonance is occurring in the viral, bacterial, parasitic, and fungal pathogens that make up our biome, right? And some of these pathogens can interfere with deep and REM sleep, particularly when they're in an unnatural environment. So we've seen kill protocols that are natural and some prescription protocols for decreasing pathogen load, bacterial, viral, and parasite, have a significant improvement in deep and REM sleep that the individuals undergoing them experience. Those are some of the biggest ones. And then you've got, don't eat too close to bed, make sure your room is black and cold, and all of those sorts of things. You can add CBD, you can add 5-HTP, depending on where your neurotransmitters are at, and those things will give you a boost. But the environment, EMF, kill protocols, and mold are three of the biggest that are overlooked and not addressed in the dozens of books on sleep. Getting nature, all that sort of thing.
Wow.
How about seeing?
Yeah, those are really good tips, and those are probably one of the biggest ones that people don't even think about, like mold and EMF. But I would maybe add, like, cortisol and stress to the mix as well. So I would imagine, like, most people are, sympathetically dominant, and they are experiencing too much stress, especially around their bedtime. So yeah, definitely making sure you're not overstimulated by things like blue light or even like entertainment and social media. Those things like psychologically can wire you up as well. But even if the stress is more physical, then that has to do with looking at the overall daily routine and daily schedule. Like, even if you are, let's say, over caffeinating in the earlier parts of the day, then that will have like a effect, or it's going to impact your deep sleep in the night. So yeah, like making sure that you don't expose yourself to like overworking too much, random stressors. And even if you are, let's say, too stressed out by the end of the day, then taking some sort of like adaptogens, or like some herbal teas, something just to calm yourself down, that can really be very useful for just psychologically as well as physically preparing for going into deep sleep.
Yeah, this is huge. And Sim kind of reminded me of something that I think is important to address. When our sleep is off and we're not recovering adequately, either due to a lack of deep sleep, a lack of REM sleep, or any combination thereof, it can lead to this situation where then we have to over caffeinate, or we have to go to certain stimulants, Adderall, Ritalin, these being increasingly popular, right? And we see this domino effect where now you have people who are probably already chronically sympathetic dominant. They're like in fight or flight all of the time. And because their sleep sucks and they need to get shit done, they're then over caffeinating and they're using prescription drugs that's further exacerbating this state of chronic fight or flight, chronic sympathetic dominance. Now, what do we know if we're in Africa and we're being chased by a lion? Our bodies doesn't give a shit about digesting our food well. Digest is something that by definition occurs in parasympathetic, right? So now you have people who biologically their cells believe that they are being chased by a lion all day, every day. We see decreased blood flow to the gut because they're saying, all right, I don't care if you can digest your food. You need that blood flow going to your brain and your muscles so that you can think about how you're going to get out of this situation. You can fight or you can flee, right? So we see decreased stomach acid production, decreased enzymes, other issues like intestinal permeability. That's a slight deviation from this current conversation, but there's no surprise that digestive issues are becoming epidemic, right? And then on top of that, what else happens when we're in parasympathetic? Detoxification. So it creates this scenario where chronic sympathetic dominance leads to suboptimal digestion, suboptimal detoxification. Are we really exposed to way more toxins now, or are we just detoxifying less effectively? We don't know. People will tell you they know, but they don't know. And these are important things to consider. We got to unwind all that shit if we want to get back into optimal daily performance.
Right. So I want to remind people that you can join the conversation. We are getting some Q&As in. You can just join the discussion by going to biohack.to/Anthony. So biohack.to/Anthony. And there's the video recording also if you're looking for it. And there's a chat that you can jump in. Both of these gentlemen will be at the Biohacker Summit in Helsinki, 1st and 2nd of November, giving keynote presentations, as well as 1,000 other people who are interested in biohacking from over 30 countries. So, and there's 40 exhibitors. There's a cool exhibition where you can dive into a bunch of this equipment and hang around with all of these fine gentlemen and ladies as well who are into biohacking. So you should come over. Our team will be optimize your day from the morning when you wake up to the evening when you go to sleep. Now, there was a question in the chat about what was the name of Anthony's EMF toy. Chema and Lini is asking.
Yeah, it's the ENV RD-10. So if you were to do a Google search, or it's available for sale on Amazon sometimes. If you type in ENV space RD-10 meter, it will come up. And you want to be careful because it's most effectively used in RF mode. So that's what's going to be looking at your wireless exposure to microwave radiation. And you want the sound on, and you want to make sure that you've got less than 2 green lights and no beeps in your work, sleep, chill environments, and when you're utilizing technology like your cell phone, laptop, computer.
Now, there is a lot of discussion about electromagnetic fields, and now increasing concern on the increasing frequencies of so many different devices in our environment. Not just the strength of frequencies we're getting from our screens by looking at phones and tablets and laptops that are destroying our retinas and our eyes, but also from the fact that these devices seem to be emitting more and more stronger and stronger signals, and not just our devices, but they're putting all these different things in our environment, like 5G masts that might be emitting some frequencies. So actually, I want to show what Seem made out of this. Let's play this, and yeah, let's go on.
Hey, what's up? My name's Team, coming at you from beautiful, natural Estonia, and I wanted to make a video about what is that? Oh my god! It's here! Oh my god! 5G!
So yeah, there's a lot of demonizing going on in terms of 5G, 4G, and all these things. I know you guys are reducing your exposure to these frequencies, and I bet Anthony, who just disappeared, I guess he was destroyed by a 5G signal. I only see some cords, so I assume that he's kind of fully wired up and doesn't use wireless. So how about you, Sim? Like, are you afraid of wireless signals?
Well, I would say that I'm definitely aware of them, and I would much rather be more cautious and spend at least some parts of the day in this non-wireless environment where you're fully grounded and in nature. But at the same time, I'm not really, let's say, scared of it either. Like, I know it has an effect on my body, but to the extent of where it's going to damage my health or affect my daily routines, then I would say that's not really a huge issue that I'm worried about, as long as I still have time to recover and as long as I still have good sleep scores and I'm feeling awesome, so to say. So I'm not scared of it if it's not going to have like any immediate impact on me, or if I'm not going to start to show any symptoms, if that makes sense.
In my case, I haven't seen inflammatory biomarkers going up. I haven't really seen a huge disruption in my sleep quality. But there is something when it comes to deep sleep that I notice when I'm in an environment that doesn't have any electric devices around. But I would bet that it's even more about the fact that I'm mostly connected to earth and grounded, like rather than being in an apartment building or in a city environment. So with all kinds of sounds in the background, so with nature sounds and all that. How about you, Anthony? Like, have you noticed anything specific when it comes to your exposure to EMF? I know that your previous home or some of that, you had a huge generator behind your bedroom, and that was kind of ruining your health. So I would love to hear your take on electronic EMF and magnetic fields.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where I think all of us, it's important to decide how we want to feel and how important that is to us, because there are dozens of different lifestyle and environmental and even mindset factors that are going to either have a positive or a negative impact on our overall quality of life and our performance. For me, I've noticed that my environment plays a big role. whether I'm staying in a high rise in Chicago, which is where I lived for years, or a home in Florida, or even best, a home in a villa in Mykonos, right, where it's still 3G and there's much, much less cell towers, cell masts, as you guys call them, where I can go for daily swims in the Aegean. All of these things play a role, and I tend to need less sleep when I'm in a very clean environment. I wake up feeling more refreshed. At the same time, I don't obsess over it. One of the things that we now know, and this was brought to my attention doing some work with Dr. Joseph Mercola, connected me with Emily Givler from Tree of Life Health. And she does a very cool assessment that involves your genes and the results of your organic acids test. And she looks at some of the genetic factors that could have an ergogenic or an ergolytic effect on your performance. There's a certain percentage of people that have a gene. I'm one of these people where you are more significantly impacted. Your voltage gated calcium channels are more sensitive to microwave radiation. So there's a biological reason that we can see when we're doing the right genetic tests for certain people noticing a more profound impact from their environment compared to other people that say don't have that gene. And then from work that we're doing, clinically and in the trenches, I also believe that there is a strong connection between heavy metal toxicity and those heavy metals in the body amplifying the effects of non-native EMF in our environment, essentially turning the organism into like an antenna. And a lot of those heavy metals tend to impact our bone marrow and in through that our immune system and endogenous stem cell production. So these are all things that we're witnessing, and when we unwind them clinically, we see an improvement symptomatically in individuals. So there's a call for greater awareness, knowing what camp you're in, and having a deep understanding of your current state of health in order to make laser targeted improvements to your daily performance.
Wonderful. Anthony, someone is asking, Raven Seeker is asking, what blood testing companies do you use?
Most of what we do with clients, we start every client out with, I've become increasingly bullish on symptom-based tests, which I know sounds very subjective. And in running so many tests on myself and with clients, you start to realize that a lot of them are not accurate, and a lot of them will produce false negatives, where if you also start treating based on symptoms, you get a positive result. So we start every client out with a full health assessment that looks at some of the core things that we've found to impact health and performance. We're looking at toxins, we're looking at chronic sympathetic dominance, we're looking at deficiencies, and we're looking at infections. Those are the main four that I believe then cause a lot of the secondary symptoms that functional medicine and integrative medicine refer to as the root causes, but they are not. And then I start most clients out with a life extension. I like life extension a lot. They've got a male and a female elite panel that provides some insightful data points. And so I'll look at their health assessment that's something that we created internally. And then I'll look at the results of I'm doing this hand thing a lot to talk about two things. I don't know why I keep doing that, but we'll look at that alongside their results from their life extension male elite panel and female elite panel to build out the initial phases of their protocol. And then as we go, based on those results, if we're seeing low white blood cell counts that could indicate a chronic viral infection. If we see, there's a lot of different things that could come up that would result in us ordering additional testing, or if that additional testing is not going to have a profound impact on their protocol, or if it's just more economically feasible to treat, and the treatment protocol would have health benefits rather than health risks, we'll just discuss it with the client, let them decide if they want to get the test or if they want to go ahead and integrate some of these biohacks and tools to potentially improve prognosis.
Yeah, we contributed to a lab testing battery of lab tests actually called Health DX. So Health DX in Finland, it's already available and it's going to be internationally as well. And it comes with documentation on your lab results that is around the size of a biohacker's handbook. So around 500 pages of interpretation of your lab results. And that's designed by Dr. Olli Sovijärvi. And we look at general health, metabolics, we look at hormones. There is tests that look at inflammation, nutritional status, looking at micronutrients, macronutrients, fatty acids. Yeah, there's a lot of things in there, and it's full blood analysis, by the way, so it's not woo-woo stuff. And yeah, one thing there definitely is hormones. There's actually a question in the chat from Mike X on best hacks for testosterone. I would say lifting heavy weights is a really good one for that, and also reducing stress in different ways. If you are struggling with high estrogen or stress hormones, then I would definitely look at supplementing with things like nettle root. Nettle root has shown to bind to sex hormone binding globulin, leading to increased levels of free testosterone. If you combine that with some pine pollen or something like this, you can increase it temporarily, but there is nothing better really than going for some heavy duty exercise. And what about you guys? What do you think?
Sleep is probably the best testosterone booster almost, and definitely like useful for lowering the cortisol and etc., and even like building muscle. So if you're not sleeping, then you're not really making any progress in the gym either. So yeah, I think sleep is really good for all hormones.
Yeah, and sunshine also with vitamin D.
That's good.
Yeah. I would echo what both of you guys said. Optimize your environment and get your deep and REM sleep up as high as you possibly can. Then you need to get blood work, whether it's Health DX or another lab. You need to know where your testosterone's at. You need to know the story of your hormones and the symphony that is the interplay between them. For some guys, their testosterone is going to be just fine, but then their sex hormone binding globulin is going to be through the roof, rendering a lot of that free testosterone unable to be utilized. So you can't just focus myopically on testosterone. You got to look at the symphony and then figure out the story of what's going on. For other guys, it's going to be high estrogen, and they're going to want to utilize. I really enjoy Quicksilver Scientific, their liposomal nano-encapsulated DIM. 4 pumps of that under your tongue, swish it around for 30 seconds to a minute twice a day, can have a profound impact on lowering estrogen. But you also need to ask questions and go deeper. Why is the estrogen high in the first place? Is your liver backed up? Are you dealing with liver issues and you're on a ketogenic diet that's further burdening your liver because you lack the ability to process fats? It's not cut and dry, and the people that are looking for easy answers are going to be left behind, because we're all evolving and we're developing a greater understanding of human biology and the complicated interrelationship between everything.
Right. Actually, Health DX is probably going to be at the Biohacker Summit. We are still kind of looking into how to get like a blood sampling station going so that you can give like, I don't know, like 15 vials of blood and faint and then get results online for your results.
Jump in the sauna and the cold plunge pool.
Yeah, it's a good combination with the cryo chamber and then going for that. But anyway, if you ever kind of wondered like where your values are, that could be, at the conference. You could give a blood sample and get some of the results in and figure out where you are. And if you're a lady and you're considering like, oh my God, these guys they're just talking about testosterone all the time. Actually, it's beneficial for women also. But most of the labs are looking at testosterone, where it's not sensitive enough, the test, the way how it looks at testosterone. So those are undetectable in ladies often in most of the labs. So what we deploy at HealthDX is a high sensitive testosterone test. So it actually detects the values also in women. And why would you be worrying about testosterone as a lady? Is basically for energy and mood and also sex drive. So there you have it. A little bit goes a long way for sure. Now, there's a question about David Weinstein is asking about EMF. What senolytic protocols are you guys using to deal with dormant cells? Any takers? Fasting. That's it. Yeah.
Fasting.
Yeah. You can do some maybe like a bit of longer fasting, as well as take some of the autophagy boosting supplements as well that can stimulate like liver detox, etc. So I myself tend to use maybe like some berberine during a fast sometimes, or even on days where I'm eating, you can take it a little bit. But yeah, generally I think some form of fasting combined with some sauna and even like regular cardio or exercise, all of those things can help to promote the process of clearing the cells.
Yeah, so basically these senescent cells are zombie cells that are lurking in there and, not dying as they should. And I guess autophagy is what we want to activate in them. And there is a bunch of compounds that have also been detected to be helpful in this process, but yeah, nothing really kind of beats fasting. But
I want to add a little bit, like it's especially good for this conversation that we've been having about EMF. So actually, EMFs can stimulate autophagy a little bit, just because like it causes cellular stress to your body, and then the body activates autophagy like a defense mechanism. So it's definitely not the best way of doing it, but at the same time, you can see that okay, although EMF and those things, they are like, I would say that they're, in most cases they're not useful. They would much rather have like a slightly negative effect, but at the same time there's light at the end of the tunnel, so to say, that you can hope that although those EMFs are damaging you, that you can say that at least they activate autophagy to a little bit.
Yeah, there's a few compounds that I would take. One of them is quercetin. Quercetin has shown to be beneficial, at least in animal testing, to reduce senescent cells. And the other one I would go for is the different polyphenols and compounds that you can find in, let's say, green or black tea. So these theaflavins have they have impressive safety record, and they can definitely help you to get rid of some of that crap that's lurking in your body. So there you have it.
Yeah, and I would also add three things. One is detoxification, because we need to remove the things that are preventing our immune system and this process of autophagy from functioning properly. When our body is unable to identify cells that need to hit the road versus cells that are healthy and performing the way they should, a lot of that has to do with toxic overload. So getting rid of some of the metals, getting rid of some of the pesticides and the viral and bacterial and parasitic and fungal pathogens and microbes that can complicate matters. The autoimmunity that can result from toxins of choice, for many people, grains, dairy, alcohol, especially in the presence of intestinal permeability, can interfere with autophagy.
Right. Okay. If anyone has some more questions, the chat is open for that. At this stage, I would love to hear. You mentioned previously, before we started discussion, Anthony, that you have some specific protocols that you have tested and to be proven to be helpful for you in terms of biohacking. Let us know a little bit more about perhaps some of your protocols.
intravenous nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. So we did an interview on the Biohacking Secrets show with Dr. Joseph Mercola, where he shared his NAD suppository protocol. And it involves essentially taking the supplement nicotinamide riboside chloride and coconut oil and making suppositories that you can administer rectally and take 5-6 days a week to improve mitochondrial function and boost NAD levels. NAD levels being one of the rate limiting factors for a lot of people in energy production. So that combined with somewhat regular NAD IVs has been very, very helpful for me. If I'm going to be traveling, I just traveled for 3 weeks. I was in Mykonos and Tel Aviv and then Ibiza, Spain. And beforehand, I loaded up on NAD and via IVs and suppositories. I did a lot of the fasting with hydrogen that we've talked about and some of these fasted workouts. And I felt amazing. I adjusted very quickly to the new time zone. And even at 3 weeks in, my friends that just came for the tail end of the trip were like, your energy's through the roof. What are you doing? And I'm like, well, I'm putting some things in my butt and doing a lot of weird things, but it's working.
What do you think about like true niagen and those sorts of things?
True niagen's good. So they make the nicotinamide riboside chloride. I have used Thorn Niacel that was recently discontinued, and I may replace it with True Niagen. You're paying a bit for the brand name, and there are some other nicotinamide riboside chloride products that are more affordable. So it really just depends on whether you want to pay for the brand name or you can find one that is the same active ingredient at a more affordable price point.
Cool. What are some of the weirdest supplements you guys are using? I know that Teemu, you have some weird mix of herbs that you made yourself.
Yeah. Like I call it like the AMP activated autophagy activator. So it's basically like a mixture of different herbs and polyphenols and other spices that promote autophagy and indirectly also promote the other pathways related to that, like AMPK and so on. So usually you can put things there like turmeric, ginger, ginseng, cayenne pepper, black pepper, berberine, those sorts of things. And yeah, like I usually consume, maybe not every day, but every other day, like on my rest days or so to say, I'll take like a bit of that blend. And
what's in it? Like what kind of herbs, for example? Is it like rosemary or?
Yeah, rosemary, even like cardamom and thyme, those things just for the the effects. And like I take it, maybe I brew myself like a tea out of it, so it's almost like a very it's virtually 0 calories, and the effect lies in that it tips your body more towards the autophagy zone, so to say, by suppressing insulin and suppressing mTOR, while at the same time raising AMPK. So that's why the name as well. So it's like it's changes the energy status of your body in a sense, and it's, if you consume it like within the fasting window, then that essentially enables you to quote unquote like speed up the process of fasting by going into the autophagy a bit faster. At least that's in theory.
I love that. I think herbs are underrated. I think people should be using more of these traditional herbs that they have, rosemary, thyme, and maybe things like nettle. And nettle seeds can be and nettle root, what did I mention, can be very helpful for things like prostate, as well as alleviating any symptoms of hay fever. So there's definitely a lot of interesting benefits, not just for this AMPK activation, but also for immune system in a wider sense. Now, how about Anthony? What is the weirdest thing that you're taking?
Probably the weirdest thing that I'm taking is it's an herbal product called Carnivora, and it was. Have you heard of it?
No,
No.
I'm looking forward to to knowing more about it. I guess
Yeah,
it's
so
like something made for carnivores.
no, it's derived from the Venus flytrap and it was originally brought to popularity by President Ronald Reagan. He used to have it shipped to the White House. It's utilized by a lot of people dealing with cancer and has an antimicrobial benefits, an immune modulating effect. So I utilize that. I'll cycle that along with cat's claw, particularly cemento, phosphatidylserine, which is not that weird, but extremely beneficial. I made a note when we were discussing like our adrenals earlier and keeping our circadian rhythm tuned. Phosphatidylserine can be very nourishing for the adrenals, and especially if taken with dinner or before bed, it can help keep our circadian biology tuned in. And then the other one is
And
extract.
also cortisol. So I think it lowers morning cortisol also.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So you can use that to, you can take it at night to improve your sleep, and then you can get up in the morning and drag your butt outside in the sun and do your meditation out there. And kind of, over time, those things will have a tuning, a normalizing effect on your circadian biology.
Cool. I like some of these honey products like Perga and also royal jelly that is like honeybee secretion that is used in for nourishing the larvae, as well as adult queens. So it's secreted from the glands of these nursing bees, and yeah, it's quite an interesting thing. So I like these natural products. Certainly.
What was the first one you mentioned? Tarraga?
Can you repeat?
You said the first one you mentioned, it sounded like Tarraga.
Perga, Perga. It is the basically the bread that the bees use. It's pretty nutritious. I think it's an underrated superfood for sure. And so when it comes to royal jelly, that is not fully studied in terms of human consumption, but I find it gives a kind of nice stimulatory effect, but you can definitely get some allergic reactions to it also if you're a bit sensitive to things like some kind of anaphylactic reaction. So I don't know, but it works for me. So one thing that I'm not using is NADH supplements. I'm not fully convinced that the research that is out there is conclusive. It seems to have some issues. It's hyped definitely in the biohacking community, but I rather go for natural ways of increasing NADH rather than taking directly. Often, when you're skipping some steps in synthesis of different compounds in the body that body produces naturally, there might be some side effects coming out of it. So that's what I'm worried about. That's why I don't take melatonin. Although I might take it as a microdose occasionally, it can speed up recovery. So, by the way, there's a trick. If you feel that you have some like flu symptoms, that's when you want to take a megadose of melatonin in the evening. You also want a megadose on vitamin D within basically once the symptoms are coming in, like within 24 hours. Later than that, you're not getting the benefits of your immune system kicking in. So that's where I would use melatonin for sure, not on a routine basis. Yeah. So I think we've been running like 1.5 hours almost. So and it's getting late here in Finland. It's half 11. This recording is going to be available later on at the Biohackers podcast and also on Biohacking Secrets podcast. You should take a look at Anthony DiClementi's work at biohackingsecrets.com. And I want to hear kind of last bits from you guys. What are some of the things that you want to kind of dive deeper into in your presentation at Biohacker Summit in Helsinki, Finland, 1st and 2nd of November? Like, what are the kind of the topics that you will be covering more over there? Anthony.
Yeah, I'm going to be sharing some parts of a 28-day protocol that I've been using myself and with clients for autophagy and ramping up detoxification, and particularly addressing some of the components of detoxification that are overlooked. So heavy metals and some of these low-level chronic infections that can have a powerful deleterious effect on our performance, so that within 1 month, people who are willing to go all in. It's not an easy protocol by any means, but I believe it works better than anything that's out there right now. It will be one of the most effective ways that attendees can have an immediate impact on their performance in mind and body. And that's aside from just coaching clients who we work with one-on-one, it will be the first place that we reveal it. So, Teemu, if you're able to share the link after Sim drops his knowledge bombs, grab your ticket to Helsinki. It's one of my favorite events. I'm excited to go there and hang out with Teemu and Sim and all of you guys who are there, and it's going to be a great time. So make sure you get your butt in a seat and show up.
Yeah, and if you're coming to Biohacker Summit and you want to get your ticket now, you can actually get it at an early bird price. That was the previous price point by just using the code Biohacking Secrets, and that will give you a nice discount. So you should go for that. Use the code Biohacking Secrets together, and you get €50 off the regular ticket price. Now, Sim, what would you be sharing?
The topic of the summit is going to be about like optimizing your day. So I want to bring into more the aspects of circadian rhythms with intermittent fasting and autophagy and those sort of things, because if you look at it, then it's very fascinating to see how your own body kind of has these very diurnal rhythms and patterns that are very much complement, and these different processes happen throughout that process and they're complementing each other. So it's almost like a very symphony and harmonious flow of these different hormones and patterns that need each other to function optimally. So I'll definitely look into, talk about fasting and other nutritional strategies, but combining it together with circadian rhythms and definitely like chronobiology.
Amazing. So thank you very much, guys. The recordings are going to be available later on. You can go to biohack.to/Anthony, and you can already watch the recording of this one if you missed something right after the streaming stops. And go to biohackersummit.com. Take a look at the upcoming event. It's going to be quite amazing. It's a 5-year anniversary event. Both these gentlemen are going to be there, and 40 other amazing speakers. And it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't hardly wait for it. So with that, I'm actually pretty... I'm excited because we were on time. We started this stream on time. It's the first time we did it. I think I'm gonna have a bottle of champagne or something with my friend Eetu here, who is behind the decks, changing the camera angles and helping me to set up this whole thing. Tomorrow, around the same time, a little bit earlier maybe, a couple of hours earlier, there's going to be Dr. Molly Maloof, and we're going to be talking about blood sugar management. And on Saturday morning, Finland time, I don't know what that's going to be US, but we're going to be sending email to anyone who's interested. The topic with Jaakko Halmetoja, my co-author, is definitely going to be something nature related and nature connection related. So with all of that, let's have more Biohackers live show streams this week. I wish you guys a healthy day. rest of the week where we are. And yeah, I'm going to have a little bit more of my ginger juice. Yeah.
Awesome.
Amazing.
Thank you guys. Great
Thank you
hanging
guys.
out.
Yeah.
Looking forward
See
to
you
seeing
around.
you in Helsinki.
Cheers.
See you soon.